6 Richest People in History. Have you ever wondered who the richest person in history really was? Maybe you think it was Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. But what if I told you that their fortunes are just a drop in the ocean compared to those who owned incredible wealth centuries ago? Today, we will tell you about the 6 richest people in history. People whose fortunes exceeded even the size of modern economies of entire countries. Some of them ruled empires, others were tycoons whose money moved world markets. But what happened to them? How did their billions disappear? Stay with us to learn about these amazing and mysterious figures whose wealth can rightfully be called legendary. The man whose fortune could sink an entire country. Who is he, and how did he manage to achieve such power? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more such fascinating stories about great personalities of the past. Coming in at number 6 on our list is John D. Rockefeller, born in 1839, who became one of the most influential and wealthiest men in history. His name has become synonymous with oil magnate, and his success is unmatched in the Industrial Revolution. Rockefeller founded Standard Oil, which not only revolutionized the oil market, but also created a de facto monopoly on oil in the United States. At its peak, his company controlled about 90% of the country's oil industry. This allowed him to not only amass incredible wealth, but also dictate the terms of the industry by setting prices and controlling the supply of oil on the market. In today's terms, John D. Rockefeller's net worth is around $400 billion, making him one of the richest people of all time. However, his success was not without its flaws. Monopolistic business practices, such as acquiring competitors, put pressure on the market and led to antitrust investigations. In 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Standard Oil should be broken up into several companies, marking the beginning of the decline of his absolute power in the oil industry. Fun fact, at one point in his career, Rockefeller controlled 90% of all oil operations in the U.S., giving us a sense of his wealth and influence. Although his methods were often criticized, his business achievements were an important lesson for future generations of entrepreneurs. 5th place on our list goes to Andrew Carnegie, a Scottish immigrant who became a symbol of success and wealth in America in the late 19th century. Born in 1835 to a poor family in Scotland, Carnegie moved to the United States at the age of 13 and faced hardships from the very beginning of his life in a new country. However, this did not stop him from striving for success. Starting his career working in a textile factory, Carnegie quickly proved himself to be an ambitious and skilled entrepreneur. He soon moved into the railroad industry, where he significantly increased his fortune, and then focused on the steel industry, which brought him worldwide fame. Carnegie founded Carnegie Steel, which soon became the largest steel company in the United States, and his personal fortune grew every year. At the peak of his career in the late 19th century, he controlled about 60% of the country's steel industry, which allowed him not only to dictate the terms of the market, but also to make key decisions that affected the country's economy. Through his innovations in manufacturing processes and work organization, Carnegie was able to significantly reduce the cost of steel production, which led to lower prices and increased consumption of this metal in the country. His net worth is estimated at $372 billion today, making him one of the richest people in history. However, despite his enormous wealth, Carnegie is known not only as the king of steel, but also as a philanthropist. Unlike other tycoons of his time, who sought to preserve their fortunes for their descendants, Carnegie believed that wealthy people should use their wealth to improve society. He dedicated much of his life to philanthropy and founded more than 2,500 libraries around the world, which provided access to knowledge to millions of people. Carnegie believed that education and self-development were the keys to progress, and he sought to provide everyone with access to books and learning. His approach to life was a reflection of the wealth is a burden philosophy he developed. He believed that wealthy people had a responsibility not only to accumulate their wealth, but also to use it for the benefit of society. This idea was part of his larger concept of good wealth, which was that money should work for the common good. He said that wealthy people should be stewards of their wealth, not just custodians of wealth. His legacy is not only his steel empire, but also his great philanthropic legacy, which continues to inspire people today. Fun fact, Carnegie built over 2,500 libraries around the world, making him one of the most important philanthropists of his era. These libraries became vital cultural centers, providing access to books and learning for millions of people, helping to create a more educated and culturally advanced society. Coming in fourth place on our list of the richest people in history is Akbar the Great, one of India's greatest rulers and one of the most powerful monarchs to ever live. Akbar, who reigned from 1556 to 1605, was the third emperor of the Mughal dynasty and was the one who managed to unite almost all of India under his rule. His name became synonymous with prosperity, strength, and grandeur, and his empire became one of the most powerful and wealthy in the world. Akbar not only expanded the territory of his empire, but also improved the economy, culture, and system of government, making his reign one of the most stable and prosperous in Indian history. His wealth, like his power, was colossal. Akbar's net worth is estimated at $500 billion in today's money, putting him among the richest people in the world. Akbar's treasury was so large that it would have been enough to finance 5 of the modern United States. He possessed not only countless treasures, but also unique collections of jewelry that were passed down from generation to generation and became symbols of power. His palaces contained huge deposits of gold, precious stones, pearls, and other priceless treasures. But despite all this luxury, Akbar was known not only for his greed for wealth, but also for his reforms in governance, which allowed him not only to keep vast territories under his rule, but also to achieve unrivaled success in the economy. In addition, Akbar was an extremely skilled diplomat who ensured the stability of his empire through wise governance. He actively developed trade, especially with Europe and the Middle East, and made India the center of international trade. He also managed to ensure religious unity in his kingdom by establishing relationships with various ethnic and religious groups in India, which further strengthened his power and ensured the prosperity of the empire. Interesting fact, Akbar was not only an emperor but also a collector, collecting unique artifacts, including jewels and gold, collected from all over India and other parts of the world. His wealth was so great that it would have been enough to finance several modern economies, and it remained a symbol of his power and might for centuries. Third on our list is Augustus Octavian, also known as Octavian Augustus, the first emperor of Rome and the founder of the Roman Empire. Born in 63 BC, his reign was a turning point in the history of the Western world. Augustus Octavian was not only the first emperor of Rome, he radically changed the structure of power, leading to the creation of the Roman Empire, which lasted for almost 1,500 years. His reign marked the end of centuries of civil wars in Rome and the beginning of an era of prosperity and stability known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, which brought prosperity to almost the entire civilized world known at the time. Augustus became an absolute ruler, uniting the country under his rule after his victory at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. He became the first person in the history of Rome to hold the titles of consul, tribune, high priest, and even the title of emperor. Thus, Augustus became not only a political but also a religious leader, wielding unquestioned power, which allowed him to carry out successful reforms in the army, tax system, legislation, and administration. He founded his dynasty and largely established the principles of the Roman monarchy, which lasted until the fall of the empire. As for his wealth, it was simply colossal. Octavian controlled almost half of the world's wealth of his time. His personal wealth included vast territories, lands, and real estate, but he also held monopolies on key resources such as grain, metal, salt, and other goods that played a critical role in the economy of the Roman Empire. According to historians, Octavian's wealth at the time of his reign, converted into today's money, is a whopping $4.6 trillion. His possessions, economy, military power, and influence covered vast regions, from Britain in the north to Egypt in the south, from the Iberian Peninsula in the west to Asia Minor in the east. An interesting fact that highlights the scale of his power and wealth. Augustus Octavian controlled up to 25% of the world's economy at the time. He owned more than a quarter of all trade routes, resources, and wealth used by states subordinate to the Roman Empire. All this power allowed him to carry out large-scale construction projects, create Roman roads and aqueducts, reform the army, and even stabilize the monetary system. It is important to note that his activities were not limited to internal reforms. Augustus created a system of friendly states controlled by Rome, providing himself with a strategic advantage in the international arena. However, like all great leaders, Octavian was not free from controversy. His reign was also associated with brutal repression, purges of political opponents, and a personal, ambitious struggle for absolute power, which in many ways distinguished him from the more democratic leaders of the past. However, it was Augustus Octavian who became the first person in history whose name became a symbol of prosperity, stability, and power, admired in Rome and beyond. His reign became a model for subsequent Roman emperors and undoubtedly left an indelible mark on human history. Shenzong, the emperor of China during the Song dynasty, who reigned from 1067 to 1085, is the second richest person in history. His reign was the golden age of China, when the country prospered and controlled most of the world's GDP. Shenzong was not only an outstanding ruler, but also a strategist who achieved enormous economic growth, turning China into the richest country of its time. Under his leadership, China experienced a significant boom in agriculture, trade, and the development of science and technology. It was during this period that China became the world's largest economic powerhouse, and its wealth could rival that of today's largest economies. In today's terms, his fortune is estimated at an astronomical $6 trillion. This is a colossal amount, which is several times greater than the fortune of the richest people of our time, such as Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. The reason for such wealth was not only the high level of trade, but also control over large land resources, as well as rich mines and successful exploitation of the domestic market. In addition, China at that time actively traded with neighboring countries, including the Arabian Peninsula and India, which allowed the emperor to increase the country's income and increase its influence in the international arena. Shenzong was the first Chinese ruler who understood the importance of developing the economy through control of major trade routes and a stable tax system. His reign became a symbol of prosperity and wealth, and even at that time, China was so powerful that it became an economic leader in Asia. It is worth noting that during Shenzong's reign, China's economy grew steadily, despite external threats and internal problems. His legacy of creating a strong economic base and developing trade continued to influence China's development for many centuries. Fun fact, during Shenzong's reign, China was the richest country on the planet. This time also marked the dawn of Chinese culture, scientific discoveries, and philosophy. The banking system, manufacturing, and even cultural life developed, which together contributed to China becoming not only an economic, but also a cultural power, influencing the entire world. First on our list is Muzan, also known as Musaphus, the Emperor of Mali, who reigned from 1280 to 1337. This African monarch became the richest man in history, and his wealth is so vast that it remains invisible to most modern estimates. Musa Therese was not just a ruler, but a true potentate, whose wealth and power surpassed even the richest European monarchs of his time. Mali, under Musa Fen, was one of the most powerful states in West Africa, and its wealth came primarily from the gold mines that were located within his empire. Mali controlled vast reserves of gold, and it was gold that became the main source of Musa's wealth. Throughout his reign, he used the gold mines and other resources of his empire to expand and strengthen the economy, as well as for foreign trade. Musa used much of his wealth to benefit his people, building mosques, universities, and infrastructure. But it wasn't just domestic affairs that occupied him. His foreign policy was also aimed at strengthening the power of Mali. His diplomatic relations with other powers and generous gifts to allies and rulers of neighboring states contributed to the prosperity of the empire. According to historical records, Musa's fortune, translated into modern money, was approximately $400 trillion. This incredible figure puts him at the top of history, ahead of even the richest people of our time, such as John D. Rockefeller and Elon Musk. However, despite his colossal wealth, Musa was known for his modesty and religiosity. He actively supported Islam, and his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 became one of the most famous events in history. During this journey, he generously distributed gold at every step, which caused a sensation along the entire route. But one of the most amazing stories associated with Musa happened in Egypt, when he was traveling through the country. During his visit to Cairo, Musa was so generous that his distribution of gold caused the economy of the region to collapse. Musa distributed gold on such a scale that the Egyptian gold market was oversaturated and the value of the precious metal dropped sharply. This shook the economy of Egypt for several decades, as the huge amount of gold led to inflation, which seriously affected the financial situation of the country. Interestingly, his visit to Cairo left a deep mark in history. Despite the colossal expenses, this campaign became a significant milestone in strengthening the position of the Mali Empire on the international arena, as Musa demonstrated his power and generosity to the entire Arab world. He not only supported culture, religion, and education, but also contributed to the economic growth of his state, making it one of the most prosperous in Africa. Thus, Musa was not only incredibly rich, but also left a mark in world history, as a man whose wealth was so colossal that it is still impossible to accurately assess its significance. Musa's fortune remains the greatest in human history, and his name will forever be associated with legends of wealth, wisdom, and generosity. These people weren't just rich, they controlled entire countries, managed economies, and changed the course of history with their incredible fortunes. But where did their wealth go? It remains a mystery to many, and perhaps therein lies another fascinating story. Who do you think could make this list of the richest people of all time? Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like, and watch other videos so you don't miss even more amazing stories about the greatest personalities of the past and their legacy.